I had tried fluoxetine, mirtazapine, propranolol, the benzodiazepams, and zopiclone and melatonin and a whole range of different talking therapies. And it gets to the stage where you sort of don't feel like anything is going to work. The ketamine-assisted therapy turns your way of thinking from one that is so complicated that it becomes stuck to one that is so straightforward that it becomes free. So the first time that I was sort of diagnosed with depression and anxiety was in 2014. My next sort of big decline was in 2020. I was extremely low. I was very suicidal. I was self-harming. I was, like I said, I'd cut myself off from absolutely everyone. I couldn't bring myself to talk to any friends at all. I started to become very affected by things that had been happening during those months. Sort of everything that was associated with that time somehow became very tarnished. Like you'd lost all love of anything that you previously enjoyed and all love of life. Or at the end of 2022, I went to my local GP and sort of just as an off-cuff remark, he turns to me and says, oh, well, you don't have to worry all that much because we've had really exciting developments in psychedelic medicine recently and they're showing great results. So if it comes to it, you can try that. At which point I sort of say, really? I'd never heard of it. I had no idea what he was talking about. So I sort of said, what's this? And it just so happened that one of, at that stage, I believe 2 psychedelic clinics was 10 minutes from my front door.
How does ketamine affect the workings of the brain?
Ketamine works on the glutamate receptors in the brain, and that's different to common antidepressant medications, for example, like SSRIs, which work on serotonin receptors in the brain. So we understand that ketamine can offer an antidepressant effect via a different pathway. We really pay attention to our client's mindset going into a ketamine-assisted session, and we do that via careful preparation.
They do a questionnaire which is scored out of 27. 27 being the most depressed you can possibly be, 0 to 5 being, normal population. Whatever normal means, that's the normal population mark. But at that stage, when I sat the test, I was 25 out of 27. So, bordering on the most extreme it could be. I failed on getting in for exactly that reason, that I was not stable enough to start the treatment. But what the clinic did, they didn't just say, oh, tough luck, close the door on the way out, we'll never see you again. He said, look, give me a month's stability, come back in the new year, we'll reassess you then, we'll see what we can do then. So that, if nothing else, that gave me a goal, if you like, to just push on a little bit further. And looking back on it now, that was extremely clever of him to do that.
Ketamine is not a classic psychedelic. Ketamine is in the category of a dissociative anaesthetic. We administer ketamine via an IM injection, so it goes intramuscularly into the arm here. We don't deliver ketamine in anaesthetic doses. We dose far below that threshold, but certainly our clients will experience some dissociative effects, and what I mean by that is perhaps a kind of out-of-body experience.
Some of the memories you had when you were undergoing this treatment weren't forgettable. Would you mind sharing some of the stuff that the psychedelic trip helped you to see or realise or understand?
The creativity that you get out of a psychedelic experience is really, really something that stuck with me. And that's where I got that real sense of awe. It's this sort of kaleidoscope of colour. It's this sort of best Baz Luhrmann film you can possibly imagine, if you like, when you have those moments. And one that I really experienced was a real love of my own mind, a real love of my own creativity, which I had not had before. I had at that stage mental health issues for 9 years, so I was fairly out of love with my own mind after all of that. But once you get into the psychedelic experience, you think, okay, my mind is creating these things, and it's creating music and imagery, and it's able to do all of these things, and you think, that's really cool. That's really amazing that it can do that.
During the ketamine experience, the therapist is mainly there as a caretaker, as that containing, supportive presence and witnessing the experience, whilst the client is having quite an internal experience. So we encourage that through giving our clients eye shades and headphones through which we play music that is designed to represent kind of the arc of the drug experience. So it has kind of a peak and a plateau, and then also kind of helping to bring people back to the room afterwards. So we're kind of following that arc with the music.
When you're having your psychedelic trip, you have a pair of noise cancelling headphones on, and it's playing some sort of light background music. At the end of it, I asked for the tracks, if you like. So I just want them because I felt like actually they were really soothing, they were really interesting, really, you know, if in the future I just want something literally just to sit in my room and calm myself down, perfect. Then you listen to them back and you think, this is not what I heard. And you think, actually, my brain is improvising new music in this. It's composing its whole new sort of score, working with this at the same time. So that for me was incredible. Then the other example, again, it's not very interesting, it's not very cool, but I would sit in the waiting room playing chess on my phone. I'm not a good chess player at all, but sort of in the end of a psychedelic experience for me, you could see the board and you could figure out, okay, right, this is where the game was at. And all of a sudden you could see a lot more moves and a lot more things that you could do. I think that is what it does. It opens up your mind to a lot more possibilities rather than thinking, this is the move, this is all I can do, this is the shot, this is all I can do, this is the music I'm listening to, I'm just going to hear those notes. All of a sudden you can see a lot more different things.
Importantly, we also understand that ketamine can help with neuroplasticity. So that is increasing connectivity in the brain, so within and between brain regions, and also synaptic growth. And so again, that's really useful for psychotherapy. It really augments the therapy process. People can take new perspectives on familiar problems and behave in more adaptive ways that make them perhaps move forward in their life in ways that they really struggled to previously. When they've previously felt really stuck, they manage to take that kind of springboard towards the life that they want to live.
There are some really dark moments during these trips as well, and dark emotions that you have to deal with. Some of them are really quite scary. Some of them you get senses of being, I mean for me, you know, the senses of even sort of being buried alive, being sort of, you know, elements of sort of real struggle, mental and physically, real sense of seeing a lot of death. But there was a real sort of shift where suddenly you'd be taken underground and stuff, and the music would very, very much change. And, you know, I would chat to my psychotherapist afterwards and she said, yeah, your heart rate went up massively in some stages because it's being monitored throughout.
You can go to some difficult and dark places, and there is that sense that it can be really helpful to allow yourself to go there, and that's because perhaps your difficulties are maintained because of your avoidance or your attempts to avoid going to dark places, which of course is really understandable why you would try not to do that. So with the ketamine experience and those dissociative effects, you're allowing yourself to be there. But what we think might be really useful and protective about that separation that dissociation gives, that kind of not quite being in your body, is that you're not fully experiencing it in a way that feels so overwhelming, so that you can experience pain and difficulty, but you stay inside your kind of window of psychological tolerance, so you don't feel overwhelmed, but you're also ideally not so cut off that you don't feel anything at all. You're just in this useful window of tolerance, which what we understand psychologically and therapeutically can really help with processing trauma, for example, or just psychological difficulty.
I remember saying out loud, and was one of the only few audible things that I did say, was, "You can't break me." And I think that was something that really stuck with me during those dark moments, was not just the fact that I was having to process them, but was the fact that actually my response in that moment was to fight. This is bringing back memories of real mental pain. This is bringing back memories of feeling like I don't belong anywhere, that I should be dead. It's bringing back memories of, you know, if you like, suicide plans that I'd made in the past. It's about working through them afterwards and thinking, okay, that's bringing back those memories, because what I've done to those is just suppress them and push them all away and thought, I don't want to deal with that ever again. You do have to deal with it. I can't just keep pushing it away and away and away. What the psychedelic experience is, it brings back those emotions that you really never want to have, and it lets you process them in a much more constructive way.
And how does it feel to know that your work has such a great impact on people such as Tristan?
That gives me goosebumps when you talk about that, actually, to think about that I had the privilege to work with Tristan and support him through his ketamine-assisted therapy journey. When we first met, I recall that Tristan was in a very kind of low, dark place mentally, and certainly struggling with motivation and energy levels. And he did a lot of work himself to prepare for his ketamine sessions, and to ensure he was as supported and as stable as he could be going into the therapy. And then Tristan just worked completely collaboratively and openly with myself, and was able, with that therapeutic support, to really harness the ketamine experiences to help him to kind of dig deeper into what might be at the root of some of those low moods that he'd been struggling with.
At the beginning, I scored 25 out of 27 on the depression test, so almost as high as you can get on it. At the end of it, we reran the test. I was down to 2 out of 27. That is a huge, huge shift in such a short period of time. Even if it would have halved it for me, even if it would just taken it out of the 20s for me, that would have been a huge improvement anyway. I'm not here to say that that will happen for absolutely everyone. Mine is a real big success story, and a success story that I think, you know, psychedelic drugs do have the ability to do and will do for a lot of people.
We are now experiencing what is become known as the psychedelic renaissance, so we are thankfully now able to conduct good quality research with these compounds to demonstrate their potential benefits. There probably is some stigma attached potentially to using something like ketamine, which can be used in recreational context to treat mental health problems. But I think awareness and understanding is growing as research develops, and as we start to use these compounds in clinical settings, or as we start to use ketamine specifically in clinical settings, that recreational use and clinical use are very different sides of the coin. So we're using it in a highly regulated fashion. It's extremely safe, and it's, I would say, not comparable.
How do you see the future of treating mental health disorders with this newfound treatment?
The future of psychedelic therapy, I hope, is bright. I really, really do hope it's bright. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of, I think, 2 things. Firstly, breaking down the stigma and making sure that people know that it's there. And secondly, obviously, making it available to people through the NHS, making it available to as many people as possible who need it. You look at the amount of people, whether they be war vets, whether they be asylum seekers, whether it be, people who have served alongside our armed forces, interpreters, security forces, whatever it is. Look at all those people suffering with PTSD, chronically suffering with it. You could treat those people and you could significantly change a lot of people's lives through psychedelic treatment.